following announcement has been paid for by the WZWA Network.
Hey guys, this is Bob Artese, ring announcer for ECW. You're watching Insider's Edge podcast.
Hi, everybody. This is former WWE superstar Al Snow.
CW Anderson.
Sean Oliver.
My name is Eugene.
And you are watching the Insider's Edge podcast.
Now get on the train.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Insider's Edge podcast here on the WZWA Network in conjunction with Blue Wire Hustle. I'm your host with the most on the West Coast, California, in Fury, and it is great to be with you again. Our YouTube, our podcast is growing by leaps and bounds as each week goes by. I can't believe the success that we're seeing so far, and we're getting a lot of compliments on getting guests on the show that don't usually get thrown into the video podcast world. And that's what it's all about, because as far as I'm concerned, everybody's story in the wrestling business is just as important and it's interesting as one another. And this man right here, I'm sure, has a very interesting tale to tell of his time in professional wrestling, having been in Extreme Championship Wrestling for a very long period of time. And I want to take this opportunity when I introduce this guest to be somebody that can announce him for once, because this is somebody that is a ring announcer. He is an announcing artiste. He is the one and only Bob Artese.
You got it. Good morning or good evening to you.
How you going, Bob? It's great to speak to you.
Great to speak to you.
Of course, bro. I'm really thrilled to talk to you today, and I want to thank Bay Ragney for getting us in touch.
Yeah, a friend of mine. Yeah,
great guy. And Bob, first question when we have people on the show is, when you were a young man, before you got in the business, how did you become a fan of wrestling, if you did?
I always watched it. Let's face it. I was always a big wrestling fan. Watched it on TV. Would go to the Philadelphia Arena and the Philadelphia Spectrum, which is where the wrestling was held at that time when I was younger, and never thought I would be involved in it, obviously. And it just happened. It was crazy. Joel Goodhart, who was running the Tri-State Wrestling Alliance about 1986, I met Joel, and his promotion was building, and he asked me if I wanted to be a ring announcer. He was expanding, and at the time he asked me, I was so busy with my regular job. I told him no, I wasn't interested. And at that point, I was still just a wrestling fan. I didn't know that much about Joel. And he asked me a second time, and I thought about it, and I thought, let me give it a try. And that was the beginning, 1986.
Wow, that's amazing. So did your friend think that you just had a voice that would be great for ring announcing, or was he couldn't find anyone else? What was the...
Yeah, I believe he couldn't find it. His promotion was growing so fast, and he and I really hit it off together. So I think he would enjoy working with me. And as far as the voice part, I have no idea. In fact, I still listen to my my tapes online or on Facebook and stuff. I still don't like my voice. So yeah, I think a lot of people are like that. So no, we were just good friends, and I think he just wanted me to work with him. And from there, it went on to Tri-State Wrestling and, of course, ECW.
Of course. I mean, this is 1986. This is 6 years before there's an Eastern Championship Wrestling. Please tell me about your experience there at Tri-State. I know, everyone says it's like the precursor to ECW, and in that company, they started doing some of those kind of crazier things. What's your perspective of that company? And for anyone out there that doesn't know much about it?
We had a lot of fun. We would run in venues that probably drew maybe 300 or 400 people. And then Joel would run the Philadelphia Civic Center once every couple of months. And there he would draw 2,000 or 3,000 people. So it was really a growing promotion. What Joel did that no other promotion did in this area, because you didn't have your cross promotions then. You had your territories the way they were. He would bring people in that you would never see before into this area. Say, like, just for example, Austin Idol. somebody like that would never wrestled in this area. He would bring people in like that. Eddie Gilbert, guys that wrestled in the South. So his promotion was really unique in that way. Lex Luger, that they would be his big shows. He would bring in the big names, and then the smaller shows it was all local guys. But it was really it was a real home group of people, and we had a lot of fun. We traveled together. Like I said, most of the shows were in 200-300 seat buildings, except for his big shows. And he ran for quite a while. And I think without really saying anything against Joel or not really knowing what the business was then, I think it got to the point where he was just over promoting, bringing in these big names, and you after a while, you just can't pay for them. And Joel basically went out of business.
Right. So, why do a lot of people feel like this becomes Eastern Championship Wrestling? Is this something that's a thing? Maybe I should have done a bit more research on Tri-State, but does it kind of lead into being Eastern Championship Wrestling?
I will give you the whole setup because I was in the office when we became Eastern Championship Wrestling. When Tri-State folded, Todd Gordon, who was a good friend of Joel's, and Todd Gordon also did some ring announcing. Todd Gordon didn't want to see it die, and neither did I, and a few other people. Larry Winters, who was one of our wrestlers, and Steve Truitt, who was our sound guy. We all met in Todd's office at Carver W. Reed. I remember the four of us, actually my wife, the five of us sitting there saying, how can we keep this thing going? We can't let it die. And at that point, we decided we would start Eastern Championship Wrestling in Todd's office. Todd would be the money man, the founder. I was going to handle advertising and the ring announcing. Steve was going to be the sound guy, and Larry was going to be our booker. From that day, Eastern Championship Wrestling began.
Right, awesome. That's now I know exactly how it all came about. That's really
exactly
cool.
How it started in Todd's office.
Excellent. So back to the ring announcing. Eastern Championship Wrestling begins in 1992, but as you first starting out ring announcing, and as the years go on, at first you're probably just trying to find your feet, figuring out how to go about it. Were there any ring announcers that maybe you took a bit of I don't know, a liking to, that maybe might have influenced you a little bit?
No, because I actually hadn't really thought about doing it. Joel just pumped it to me, and that was it. So I hadn't really watched anybody, and really thought about it. I do know I was so nervous my first show, I almost forgot my own name. I was really nervous the first show. It was in Philadelphia, in the Philadelphia Sports Bar. That's where it was. And I remember Joel saying to me in the beginning, and I guess because he knew I was nervous, is don't even worry about what you're saying because the wrestlers really don't listen to their introductions. Well, that's not the truth. I'll tell you. That was just to settle me down because wrestlers are very particular on their introductions. So that was it. Like I said, I was nervous in the beginning, and then I really started feeling good about it. I enjoyed it. It had great rapport with all the wrestlers, which made it fun. And from that point on, after about the third or fourth show, I really felt comfortable. And then, of course, when I went with ECW, it all started over again because we went from 300-400 seat buildings to crowds of 6,000, 7,000, and 8,000 people. So that, of course, was a little bit different.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
So the early days of Eastern Championship Wrestling, before Eddie Gilbert comes in, I talked a little bit to Mr. Bay Ragning about this because he was on the roster during those times.
Yep.
These are, the humble beginnings of Eastern Championship Wrestling. Tell me a little bit about those early days. I guess you were in Tri-State, and now you want to keep it going. It's got a new name. Were there struggles in those early days for the company?
Well, basically, we were using the Tri-State Wrestlers. We were really like Tri-State Wrestling, just under a different name. And Joel wasn't involved with it. Todd Gordon was now. And we were, the shows weren't anything like ECW shows. They were very calm and friendly oriented. We couldn't really afford to bring in big names. So it was all the local guys who were really running the show, and really good local guys. I mean, they were doing a great job. Bay was one, the Sandman, Tommy Cairo, these were the top-notch guys. And then we would bring in, I remember we brought in Don Morocco, Jimmy Snuka for a run here and there, and maybe a few other names. But it really didn't grow until Eddie Gilbert came in. And then, of course, Eddie added that south or that southern tier to it, where he was bringing some of his guys in, which really made it interesting because these were guys we never saw before. And Eddie started adding the different feuds that were really unique. The feuds where you would have groups of 3 or 4 wrestlers be in a certain clan, and they would all be around the ring during a match, and it really made it exciting. And so that's what I remember us really taking off when Eddie got here. We're going in a different direction.
Right. When I was speaking to Bay about the whole thing, he said when Eddie came in, a lot of those original Eastern Championship Wrestling guys kind of were out the door as Eddie was bringing in.
Yeah, well, that's the only bad thing about wrestling. I'm sure that happens. It happens when Paul came in too. Yeah, a lot of the local guys who really helped build us were let go when Eddie was bringing his people in. But I'm guessing that's kind of normal.
Right. Yeah. And I believe this is what leads Bay to forming Liberty All-Star Wrestling.
Yes, I worked for him with the LAW. Yeah.
Right. So, was there any uneasiness about the fact that you were working with one company and also ECW?
No. Like I said, I got along great with the promoters and with the wrestlers. I really had a good rapport, and there was never any problems at all. No.
Cool. So things are growing as time goes by. ECW Hardcore TV becomes a thing. I've seen the first few episodes myself. Very interesting stuff. And I was surprised to see Terry Funk on the first episode and all that. I wasn't aware that he had come in so early. So you said that things started to really take off when Eddie Gilbert was put in charge. What was your perspective when all of a sudden Paul Heyman came in?
Well, it surprised me because obviously Paul came in while Eddie was here. And I had understood that Paul and Eddie were really good friends from previous working together. And things seemed to be going well. And then I started hearing rumblings that Paul wanted to take over. Now, I don't know exactly if there was animosity there between he and Eddie. That part I wouldn't know. But I do know Paul wanted to take over. And finally, Eddie was ousted. Now, I don't know if Eddie quit on his own or he was actually dumped by Paul. That part I wouldn't know. It just happened. But I know there was some animosity, a lot of it, towards the very end. And I remember Eddie's very last show, which was kind of like a goodbye in the ring. And that was it. Eddie was gone and Paul was the new booker.
Wow. So what were your first impressions of a younger Paul Heyman back then when you first met him?
Well, Paul has a great mind. There's just no two ways about it. He's just incredible. He's not a real, I got along great with Eddie. Not that I didn't get along great with Paul, but Paul wasn't a real, Paul had his own group, and I wasn't one of them. Paul came pretty much in, and he brought a lot of people in from New York, and I was basically Todd's guy. So we didn't have that real close relationship, although we had a good working relationship. But as far as what Paul did in the ring was incredible. It really was. And it looks that he was good for the company.
Absolutely. And the company evolves quite a lot as Paul takes over. From your perspective, how could you see things evolving with Paul and his vision?
Paul always wanted to do something different and new and introduce new things to what we did, which obviously he did. And Paul would get the most out of his wrestlers. I remember Paul talking to us before every show, And his motto was to make sure you entertain the fans. That was the number one thing, to entertain the fans. And his wrestlers were really loyal to him. They would do whatever he asked them. There was never any griping on who was going to do the job. Everybody just did what they had to do. And that's what made ECW so special. And when Paul would start introducing these different angles and different endings and features, a lot of them we didn't even know about. Some of the surprise people he would bring in, he would keep them out in the parking lot. And we didn't even know. And then all of a sudden they would appear. And it was amazing. It really was. So he was really good for the promotion and good for wrestling.
Excellent. So, during this period of time, I know you're the ring announcer, but did you have any other jobs that you would do within the company? I know a lot of people pitched in here and there for a lot of things.
I guess kind of whatever they need. See, I really had my own jobs. I was working 2 jobs. Basically, with ECW, we ran on weekends. So what I would do if we were going out of town, I would take Friday vacation from my regular job and then fly out. And of course, we would work Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, all within a closed area. And then I'd fly back in either Monday morning or red eye Sunday night. I'd be back in work Monday morning. So I whatever they needed, I did if I could. But basically just working on the weekends, we didn't have a lot of stuff going. During the week, of course, was television and promos and stuff like that, which I wasn't really involved with. And that was all done in New York. So I didn't have much to do during the week, just on the weekends.
Fair enough. So I am skipping ahead a little bit, but I wanted to talk about ECW Barely Legal 1997 and how it felt for you to be the ring announcer for the company when they finally on pay-per-view for the first time. This must have been quite a thrill for everybody.
It was incredible. All I remember before the show, and this is something you wouldn't normally see, is walking around the building, all the trucks and the dishes on the roof of the trucks and all the wires coming into the building. It was incredible. In other words, before the show even started, all the technicians walking around, getting this thing ready, it hit everybody. Wow, this is pay-per-view. Because you kind of didn't really know what it was like until you saw all the behind the scenes stuff. It was incredible. And then once it started, other than us all trying to do what we could do best, I don't remember any other pressure. Just wanting to, do our thing. But I think once the show started, it was just like another show.
Right, fair enough. But yeah, what a great moment in history, and it's hilarious to me that right as the pay-per-view goes off the air, something happens, the power cuts out.
The power, yeah. The timing was incredible, and of course we didn't know it at the time, until we found out later.
It's brilliant. And speaking of Barely Legal, and that amazing moment right at the end of the show where Terry Funk wins the ECW Heavyweight Championship right at the end there. There was something I wanted to bring up because I believe this is the first time I was made aware of you because, I only became a wrestling fan probably late in 1998 when I was, I think, 12 years old.
Right, yeah.
But I watched a documentary called Beyond the Mat. And I believe there was a whole section about Terry Funk having his retirement match. Mm-hmm. I just wanted to know, how many Terry Funk retirement matches have you announced for?
Jeez. Maybe 3.
I don't know why. I just wanted to ask that one because bit of a cheeky question. But yeah, things are riding high with ECW, but obviously there is another point in time that I thought would be interesting to get your point of view on, and that is Todd Gordon leaving the company.
Yes.
Obviously, this is a pretty big thing that happened in the company's history, and I kind of feel like Todd doesn't get enough credit, especially with the WWE's narrative of what happened with ECW. I feel like he deserves a bit more credit. But how did you feel about Todd leaving the company?
Well, Todd and I were close. In fact, we still are. Todd and I talk a lot. And I really felt bad, especially knowing that what Todd did in the beginning, Todd really funded everything until Paul really got involved. And obviously we were not making money in the beginning. and Todd was really the money man. And so first of all, he didn't deserve to be ousted, if that's the right word. And as Paul got in and more power, and Paul wanted to do his thing. And then of course there was the talk about Todd and some of the wrestlers with WCW. And we just heard, once again, in the locker room just hears rumors, unless you're one of those wrestlers. And then all of a sudden, like you said, Todd was ousted. I was really, I was shocked. I really was, because I really didn't know exactly what was going on. And then all of a sudden Todd's gone. So I can't give you a lot on that because I really don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, I have, watched a few Todd Gordon interviews about that whole situation. He's adamant that he wasn't some sort of mole.
That's what they're using, right?
Yeah, it's always that's always the word that was described. He was the mole,
Yes.
and I
Yes.
just I don't. I mean, I've seen the interviews that he's said I was not a mole, and I believe him because he's got a lot of conviction when he says it, and he doesn't seem like he's.
Yeah, I don't think he was. I mean, wrestlers, let's face it, wrestlers will talk to other organizations. I mean, that's the nature of the game. They want to, plus at that time, I'm guessing at that time, ECW wasn't totally stable. I know a lot of guys were missing paychecks or not getting their full pay. So, guys start to look around a little bit. So I don't know that mole's the right word.
No, I don't think so either. And if one of the big companies wants to get in contact with somebody that wrestles for ECW, they will find a way. They don't need Todd Gordon to help them out with the phone.
You're 100% right. You're 100%. Yeah.
So like, for example, if somebody wants to get into WCW, well, I know that Raven is friends with DDP, so I'll give Raven a call to get in contact with DDP, who knows Eric Bischoff. Like
100%. You're 100% right. Sure.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay, so a lot of these years you're right there at ringside, and I just wanted to get from you memories being at ringside and what were the most eye-opening things that took place in front of your eyes at an ECW show. What are some of the crazier moments that made you go, wow, like I thought I've seen it all?
Yeah, well, obviously New Jack coming off the balcony or jumping off wherever he could was unreal. In fact, before a show, when we would be in the building and, you'd be milling around, New Jack would be up in the ceiling, honest to God, looking to see where he was going to jump. This is before the show. Yeah. And you would see him up in the rafters trying to figure out what he was going to do. So, of course, that was one of the unbelievable things. Some of the emotional things were when we had wrestlers working for us and then they were leaving. Say, like, I remember like Dean Malenko or Eddie Guerrero when they were having their last match here in Philadelphia. And the fans would stand up and say, please don't go, please don't go. The emotion was unbelievable for these guys. I mean, the love you would feel. It was a crazy crowd. It was bloodthirsty, but then it was also the most loving crowd you could work for. Yeah. It was so they were highlights. Some of the matches I can't even think about, but some of the spots that these guys would do, the chair shots that were not pulled. I'm talking about chair shots where the chair get dented on the guy's head. I mean, they gave all they could. I'm telling you, they really did. You'd go back in the locker room when the show was over, and these guys were stretched out on the floor trying to get their back worked on or this worked on or that work. I mean, they gave the fans all they had. So that would be my memories. Just the work rate that these guys put in was just unbelievable.
Yeah, it is crazy the amount that these guys put themselves through, especially, think of like a Sabu Terry Funk barbed wire match.
Yeah. I mean, when you're watching this stuff, I hate when people say fake. There's no way with barbed wire. Or when it was the match where I guess Dreamer went through 2 or 3 tables stacked on top of each other. I mean, you're watching that in front of you. That's unbelievable.
And people say things like, oh, the barbed wire, they probably clipped it and all that, but no, they got tangled in and they couldn't get out.
No, exactly. No, it's crazy stuff. And some of the great stuff that you don't see with ECW that I really had fun with in the ring with the different guys when they're supposed to, like when I announce them and they want me to change it, and they'll come over and they'll whisper in my ear, they want me to say something else. And of course, I know what I'm supposed to say. Some of the things they whisper in my ear are unbelievable. Trying to make me laugh. It was crazy. Yeah, I thought there was a good rapport with a lot of the guys. Really, I remember one funny thing. We had a girl who was, I guess, like the 5th or 6th row, and she was flashing herself at intermission. So the next match was Sabu. Okay, now you have to picture this. Sabu at this time can't talk English, right? He never speaks, not a word, right? He can't talk. So Sabu comes into the ring. He's running around the ring like he normally does. He comes over to me, and he says, "Where's the girl at?" And I thought, it's so funny because he can't speak. You know what I mean? He goes, "Where's this girl? Where's this girl?" These are the things that went on with ECW that, like I said, you wouldn't normally know. And it was some great memories, a lot of fun.
Absolutely. And there are a few incidents that I wanted to bring up and see your feelings on them as you're seeing them take place in front of your eyes. And the team I wanted to bring up was the Dudley boys and how they would nearly incite riots with some of the heat that they would draw. Were there ever times where you felt a little bit, worried about your safety because of how crazy they would get those fans?
They really built up the heat. There's no two ways about it. And here's two guys that didn't really work together in the very beginning when Paul had this whole idea of the Dudley boys. There was about 6 of them at first. Obviously, Bay was one of them. And we didn't even know if it was going to work. And they were going to come in as farmers. That's how it was set up. And I guess Bubba Ray was great with the heat. I mean, he really built up the hatred. And then, of course, Devon along with them. But they would get the crowd riled up. And he would go to any extreme to insult you or just get you mad, which is what happened. And you're right. You're 100% right. There was sometimes I thought there would be a riot, really.
And there was another incident that I was always interested in. I've had the chance to ask anyone who might have been there to witness it, but I know that there was an angle in the ring with Shane Douglas and Pitbull Gary Wolf, and he had his neck.
Oh yeah. That was unreal.
I believe that became quite a serious situation where fans were literally like chasing Shane and Francine to their car. Can you tell me your perspective of that?
Yeah, you know what? It's funny. Like I say, the fans were bloodthirsty, but they also felt sorry for certain. In other words, when Gary had that halo on, they really felt sorry for Gary. And when he attacked them, instead of the fans being bloodthirsty, they all changed against Shane at that point. How can you be bloodthirsty but also have a tolerance to stop, if you know what I'm trying to say? That's how the fans were. It was really a funny thing, because you would think the fans would have liked that part of it, because that's going over, kind of over. But no, then it's like, stop now. You can't do that. New Jack and bash you with a trash can, but don't touch Gary's halo. It's kind of a funny thing. You're right. And Shane, he was hated there for a while. In fact, it built him up as a good heel.
Absolutely. Incredibly underrated as far as I'm concerned. Once again, I always get annoyed with the WWE and their narrative about things. They never give certain people props because they're not their favorites. You know what I mean? Yeah. Well,
Shane was a great guy. He would do anything for the company, anything.
Absolutely. And one more incident I wanted to bring up was the crucifixion of the Sandman.
That I didn't like.
That's
that I didn't like. I got to be honest. I thought that was carrying it too far. I could when he did that, I could hear the fans. I could hear a woo, like, you got to be kidding me. Some of the fans, of course, thought it was great, but a lot of them didn't. And I didn't like it myself. I thought that was kind of carrying it too far, but that's that's just me, you know.
Fair
I
enough.
mean, I
No.
know a lot of people felt the same, and I remember telling Todd, I never ever said anything about anything they did. Todd was still with them then, but I remember telling Todd, I think I called Todd, and I said to him, just my opinion. I said, but I thought that was horrible, you know, doing that. I said that just wasn't right, and I mean that was the end of it. But yeah, I didn't like that.
Yeah, it was a little bit on the nose, I must admit.
Yeah.
So okay, we were speaking of fans. Do you have any stories of any funny interactions with the fans, or any moments where you know, because wrestling fans can be pretty weird at times. Did you have any weird moments with any fans?
You know what? They were. It was a well-behaved group. Like I said, ECW. You had to be there. It was really a bond where the fans really respected the wrestlers, and the wrestlers respected the fans. And other than the fans being bloodthirsty, like I said, I thought they were great. They cheered when they were supposed to. They booed when they were supposed to. And I worked with ECW, what, 12, 15 years. I can't remember any fan like reaching over or trying to get into, you know, anything at all like that. I don't remember much fan. I do remember the Dudleys, like you were talking about, a little bit of maybe shoving and pushing with the Dudleys. But other than that, the fans really respected the wrestlers. Like I said, I thought it was a great relationship between both. Even when we went on the road, because the fans were just so amazed and thrilled to see ECW live that once again, there wasn't a lot of interaction that way.
Fair enough. Okay. I wanted to ask you a little bit about, you know, when every time it seemed like ECW, you know, starting to really cook with gas, then a few top names would get signed away by WWF and WCW. You know,
Right.
how did you feel about that in ECW having to keep rebuilding and make another new top guy and another new top guy before they're off as well? You know, how did you feel about that?
Yeah, your first reaction was you were glad for the guy being taken away because he was going to a higher place or a better pay, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So you were sorry to see them go, but you were glad for them. And a lot of them, I really had a great rapport with them. A lot of them I stayed in touch with. I remember when Benoit, Shane, and Eddie Guerrero all went to WCW. Now this is later years. And I remember when WCW was in town for, I guess, I don't know, they came in on Mondays. I forget now. But I remember that Shane called me. They were at the hotel and he called my wife and I and he said, do you want to meet at an Outbacks and we'll have dinner together? So like I said, I had a great rapport with these guys. So even though they were WCW then, I still had dinner with them, you know, when they were in the city. So like I said, I felt good for them that they were getting a chance to go someplace else. The good thing with Paul is Paul had so many contacts that he'd bring somebody else in and he would build them up. And in time, they were just as hot. That was the amazing thing. He could just keep replacing these people. And after a while, you didn't even think about them because he had somebody else in the ring that was just as good. So that was where Paul was really good.
Yeah, it is uncanny how quickly it would be that you could just forget about the fact that there's this top guy like Taz was there, and now someone else has got the next spot, and you've almost forgotten Taz was even there because now this focus is it's been almost like this guy who's now the man has always been there.
I'll tell you, Paul has a great mind. I would see Paul thinking of an angle 5 minutes before we went out. Honest to God, he would be sitting there, and you could see his head down and the wheels turning, and all of a sudden he'd yell, "Okay, somebody, come here." And something was created right there, right before the match. It wasn't even something he had planned. And it would work great. It just worked great. And of course, these guys would do it for him.
Yeah, Paul is an interesting guy. I remember Joey Styles told a story about they were, you know, after the show, they were editing the show. Paul was in the room, but Paul was like asleep, like with his arms crossed, like asleep like this. Yes. And they're editing things and he's asleep, but then like, you know, he'd wake up for a second. No, you do this instead. And go back to sleep. Like he was editing the show whilst being in and out of sleep. I thought that was a crazy story.
Well, here's a funny story too. I'll never forget this. After one of the shows, Paul, Todd, myself, my wife, and maybe 2 or 3 of the other wrestlers, we went out to the diner to get something to eat. And the whole time we were in the diner eating, Paul was going through an angle that he was thinking of. The whole time we were sitting there, he was going through an angle. What do you think about this? And then if we do this, and then his mind never stops. It never stops.
Yeah, and you know, when I look back on you know, the 3 companies that are my favorite, WWF, WCW, ECW, I look at WCW and I can always say, oh, you know, they could have done better by that guy, or they definitely did wrong by that guy. WWF, the same thing. This guy should have got a push. When I look back at ECW, I can't really think of anyone that didn't get given some good stuff to work with. Everyone seemed to get given an opportunity to do good things. And I just can't even think really of one person that was a mainstay there that wasn't given an opportunity to shine and show the best that they can be.
Here's an example, Mikey Whipwreck. Mikey was the ring crew. Mikey never wrestled. Mikey was the ring crew. And after they would set the ring up, Mikey would go into the ring and he would do some spots with a couple of the other guys that worked, you know, on the ring crew. And Paul watched them one day. And Paul said, you know, we can do something with this kid. He became a wrestler. And he became one of our top wrestlers. This guy was a ring crew. That's exactly how it started.
He ended up winning every single belt.
Yeah, it's crazy. I remember him setting the ring up.
Oh dear, it's some great stuff. Okay, so this question here, for you in the wrestling business, what would you say, you know, during your time in ECW, what's the proudest moment of your career, being a part of that company?
Jeez. I can't really think of a proudest moment. It was I guess as I look back, I guess the proudest moment, or it wasn't a moment, was being involved with a promotion that without a doubt will go down in history as changing the wrestling world. There's no 2 ways about it. I was involved changing the world of professional wrestling. So that's something to be proud about, because there's no 2 ways about it. It changed wrestling forever. I mean, there's things going on now that probably wouldn't even be happening if it wasn't for ECW. So I don't have one proud moment. It would be being part of a company that changed everything.
Right, that's cool, man. So in my research, this is it could be right, could be wrong. Did you leave ECW in 1999, and if so, why?
Let's see. I did leave for about maybe 6 or 7 months or something. You know what? I have to think why. I do remember leaving. It might have been over a pay something, or not being paid for a long period of time. And not that the money was so much, but it was just the idea that I was going out there busting my butt. And I guess there was a time when he wasn't paying people. And that might have been pretty much it. And then I remember Paul came to me and we didn't have a disagreement, but we kind of made up or whatever. And then they had me come back on a show where the Sandman brought me out. They didn't know I was in the building. And the Sandman brought me out with Missy Hyatt of all people. And that's when I came back. So I was going to say maybe it was 6 or 7 months I was gone. Yeah. So I think it was a paid dispute or just not getting paid. And I just got fed up with it.
Right, because I'm trying to figure out the timeline of when you might have been gone and when Steve and Deangelis, if that's how you pronounce his name.
Yeah, well, Steve did a lot of the shows in New York. Steve was Paul's guy. Steve and Paul. Yeah, Steve and Paul. In fact, Steve produced something on TV where he used Paul. So Steve and Paul had a big relationship, and Steve came in. You're right. A couple of times while I was going, we also had another ring announcer, Rocco Musiano. Rocco would do it. And then Steve started doing the New York shows. Hold on one second. Steve started doing the New York shows. So I would go and I'd work the bell and he would do the New York shows. And then when we went on the road, I would do most of the shows. If I couldn't do a show, then Steve would try and do them, because Steve had another job also.
Right.
So two guys that had jobs that had to try work ECW in.
Right. So now
Yes.
I've uncovered it. You both did it at the same time, just in different towns or depending on the situation.
Steve definitely did New York. That was his area. I did do New York, and then Steve came in. I mean, I did New York also.
Right. Okay. Now I'm starting to get the picture painted for me. I thought you left and you never came back after 1999.
No. I left and then I came back. I'm going to say maybe like in 7 months I came back,
Okay.
and then I worked the rest of the time until the promotion folded. So I was there the whole time except for maybe 7 months.
Right. Cool. I don't know how, familiar you are with some of the other ring announcers in the business and what you think of their work. I don't know, maybe I'm thinking that being a ring announcer is this intricate thing, and some people have strengths or weaknesses that you might see, or maybe it's just you're just announcing people, and maybe I'm just thinking too in depth about it. But I think there is an art behind it, because I feel like when you ring announce, you give it this big fight feel. It feels like something real important's about. This is an important match that's about to take place. But
I guess the way I went into it is I always thought that the fans weren't there to see me. They were there to see the wrestlers. And it was my job to get the wrestlers over in the ring. And that was my number one thing. I never once thought that there's people there to see me. In fact, if people asked me for an autograph or something, I actually got embarrassed. I would do it, but I would get embarrassed. Like I said, the fans were there to see the wrestlers, not me. And I think that's why I got along so great with the fans, because I think the fans sensed that also. I do know some ring announcers now, and this is just my opinion, but I think what turns me off is they think they're somebody special, and they're not. They're there to get the wrestlers over, and they're not. Like some ring announcers change their names, some kind of fancy name. I'm Bob Artese, the ring announcer, period. I do know some ring announcers that, have actually changed their names. I don't know why, but, and then some of them have like their own websites. There's no way in hell I'd have a Bob Artese website. I mean, that's just how I am. I think that's why I got along. And I think that's why I get along so good with the wrestlers, because they realized I was there for them and for the fans. And that's, which is plain Bob, and that's how I look at it. That's how I look at it. And you asked me, what do I think of other ring announcers? I don't obviously go to a lot of shows or watch them, but I do notice if I go on Facebook, certain ones have their own website, certain ones change their names. And I did go to a show, I guess before the pandemic. It was in New Jersey, and the ring announcer changes his name, and he comes into the ring like dancing, and I'm thinking, we're not there to see him, we're there to see the matches.
That's ridiculous.
Hopefully that answers your question. I'm just plain Bob.
I wanted to rattle off a couple of ring announcer names from the business and just see what your opinion is of their work. Firstly, Stephen Deangelis, what did you think of him as a ring announcer?
Oh, I like Steve. Yeah, I mean, Steve and I were buddies. So yeah, I like Steve. Yeah. The only thing about Steve, it was funny with Steve, is if there was anything going on in the ring or any wild stuff, he got out. Steve got out. Where I used to get my ass kicked. That was the only difference. I took the Dudley death drop. I remember being choke slammed by Big Al. In fact, I'll never forget with Big Al. Big Al used to come out and choke slam people, if you remember that. And when he got into that, we did it around the circuit. So we didn't only do it in Philadelphia, but I think I was choke slammed in 15 different buildings. I used to say, "Whoa, enough's enough." So I was more or less, I would do anything that they needed to. I got caned. Sandman caned me a couple of times. Who else caned me? I got caned a couple of times, but I would do whatever they needed. But I know Steve did. That was the only thing with Steve. He got out of the ring. He wanted no parts of it. But
Oh, that's crazy. I actually had no idea that you'd taken the choke slam and you'd taken the Dudley death drop. That's
Oh, the funny thing about the Dudley death, this is what's funny about that. It was in Chicago, pay-per-view. And we're in the ring and they say, okay, you're going to take the Dudley death drop. So let's practice it. So they would do it. And Shane, I remember Shane saying, next time, hold your arm differently. All right. We did it again. Next time, we must have done it 6 times in the before the show started. I was so damn sore. It went over great in the ring during the show, but the practicing part was a riot. Just move your hand here. But they were great. They protected you when they did it. When they did it in the ring, they take care of you. So
that's brilliant. That is brilliant.
Yeah.
I don't know what your thoughts were on one Gary Michael Capetta.
Yeah, I like Gary. I thought he was pretty good. I liked him. I thought he did a good job. That was before I was really a ring announcer, but when I watched him, I thought he did a good job.
Excellent. From the WWF, Tony Chimmel.
I don't even know who that was.
Oh, really? He was kind of like their ring announcer, like during the late 90s, 98, 1999.
Okay. Actually, to be honest with you, I haven't watched the WWF lately. So
neither have I.
I'm so busy with my other jobs that I haven't watched a lot of wrestling. Some of these people I may not even know.
That's all right.
Howard Finkel, of course, he was super too.
That was my next name. I was going to bring up Howard Finkel.
I met him twice. Real nice guy. Really nice, down to earth. Yeah. In fact, I haven't spoke to anybody that didn't like him. As far as wrestlers. Yeah.
Yeah, you never hear a bad word about him. No. Okay, from the 90s in WCW, Dave Penza.
Yeah, I thought Dave did a good job. Yeah, I know who you mean. Yes.
Yep.
Never met him.
No. Lillian Garcia.
Well, it's hard to say because she was pretty. Yeah. I thought she did a good job. Maybe,
cool.
Maybe I didn't really watch her because she was pretty to look at. You know what I'm saying?
And obviously from the boxing world as well. What do you think of Michael Buffer?
Just my opinion. Too much of a show off.
Right. Fair enough.
My opinion. Once again, you're there to get the boxers over, not yourself.
Well, I think he every time somebody uses "Let's get ready to rumble," he gets paid like $10,000 or something.
Yeah. Something. Like somebody said one time, "Do you want to use that line?" I said, "You got to be kidding me! No way,
no chance, no way." Okay, I wanted to know about when ECW was closing down in January of 2001. Were you at that last show in Pine Bluff or?
No, I wasn't at the last show. No, he wasn't. Money was so bad, he wasn't flying people. Normally he would fly me, put me up in a hotel, whatever, So no, we heard rumors. We didn't know that was the last show. We had heard rumors. Of course, nothing was ever definite. It was the rumors were he's trying to get more money, or he's got something else up his sleeve, or this, or we have another backer. We kept hearing positive things, but none of us really believed it. I guess we got to a point, especially when guys weren't getting paid and stuff like that was going on. So we knew the end was coming. We just didn't know when. Right.
So tragic.
Yeah.
Did you find out like everyone else? Paul shows up on Monday Night Raw, and okay.
Yeah. I guess looking at from Paul's aspect, I could see where he, just like with Joel, when Joel folded Tri-State Wrestling, you try and keep it going, I guess, as much as you can. And then all of a sudden you just realize I can't do it anymore. That's it. I mean, there's just no money, I mean, I guess that's what happens. They try and keep it going. And you realize, there's always that, well, maybe we could do one more thing, or we can have one more pay for view or something like that. And it just doesn't happen.
Right. So, I mean, how did you feel now that this thing that you were a part of for,
Oh, disappoint. Oh, God,
gosh, I
hurt,
mean, if you,
disappoint. Yeah, like part of my life was gone.
yeah,
Almost like every weekend we were together somewhere, either local or on the road somewhere. And yeah, all of a sudden it was gone. It was
yeah,
unbelievable. Uh, and then when ECW left, uh, Bay started his Law, Liberty All Star Wrestling, and I worked for Bay. And there was another one, Wrestling Unplugged. I worked for them. There was some more small promotions around, so I kept busy working shows, and of course it was all more independent guys, and of course much small houses, like in a gym or a school gym or recreation center or something. But it kept maybe one show here, one show there, that kind of thing. But I definitely, in fact, I miss it today. There's no two ways about it. I miss it today. When I do a show now, I'll think to myself, wow, I'll do a show maybe in front of 200 people, and I'll think, nothing against the promotion, but I'll think to myself, my God, it'd be 8,000 people, if
yeah.
W, but is what it is.
Yeah, and I understand it, and that's a big void, Yeah, and as I remember, Francine said it, ECW, you all felt like you were a family, and then
no doubt, the friendship, yeah, no doubt
yeah,
about it. Yeah, the friendships were great. They really are. I'm still in touch with the referees, Molyneux and Finnegan, and then with Francine on Facebook. I mean, a lot of them on Facebook. Once in a while, in fact, it was a WWE was in Philadelphia before the pandemic, and I got in, and it's when a lot of the ECW guys were still with them, just to see everybody. It was nice, and is what it is.
yeah. I'm actually interviewing Jim Molyneux on Saturday, so
Okay.
very excited about that. You're my first ring announcer, and he'll be my first referee, so very excited.
When you interview him, you can tell him that I remember him when he started out 50 pounds ago.
I'm going to write that down.
Yeah, he's gained a lot of weight. Like that. I remember him 50 pounds ago.
Brilliant. Okay, so like ECW's closed down, and I always find this to be another interesting topic to bring up. And it's 2005. There's this documentary's come out, DVD on the rise and fall of ECW, and it does really well, goes gangbusters. RVD gets in Vince McMahon's ear about, why don't you let us do one more show? We're tough, we can do it. And ECW One Night Stand is a thing. Who contacts you about being a part of ECW One Night Stand?
Maybe Todd. Maybe Todd. I don't remember. I'm gonna guess Todd Gordon, or maybe Dreamer, because Dreamer was in the WWE office then, I believe, wasn't he?
Yeah. I think it was
Dreamer. It was Dreamer. Yeah. I remember it now. Yeah.
Right. So I mean, this. My friends, we sat there watching this, just in absolute awe. That it was one of the greatest pay-per-views that I've ever seen. To you, did it feel authentic ECW? How did it feel to be in the Hammerstein Ballroom and be able to?
Incredible to be part of that. It was incredible. Just the chanting, it was unreal. And I remember the WWE wrestlers were all up in the third balcony, watching this, and it was crazy. Then Paul came out, did his promo, and he pointed right at them. I mean, it was just an unbelievable feeling being out there. It really was. I was proud of the organization, proud to be part of it. It was kind of neat. It really was.
That's great. And it was a shame that a lot of the guys were signed to TNA at the time. So not all the ECW names could be there, but this was like ECW deserved to have a send-off. That full stop at the end of the sentence. Pine Bluff, Arkansas isn't the place.
No. Yeah.
This felt like this was the right way to go.
The stars were there. A lot of the top names were there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And remember, it was crazy because now you figure we hadn't been in existence for a while, and
Yeah.
I'll never forget the Sandman's entrance. It was almost like nothing ever stopped.
Mm.
It was great. It's like you went back 3 years in history. Nothing changed. He come out with the beer and the music, and the fans went crazy. It was unreal.
Absolute pandemonium.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know if you were there. The following ECW One Night Stand, did you also do that in 2006?
Yeah. I did that one
Okay.
too. That was pretty much it. Yeah.
Right. So you and Steven did both shows.
Dreamer ran some of his own promotions in Philadelphia called Hardcore.
House of Hardcore.
Yeah. I didn't do those shows.
Right, cool. So you did the 2006 show for One Night Stand 2, and ECW was returning to have like a weekly TV show.
Right.
Were you contacted to ring announce for that? Or was it just Steven?
No, it was just Steve. They knew that because of my jobs, there's no way I was going to quit a job. And, because now you're talking about working during the week.
Right.
So they knew I wasn't interested at all, where Steve was right there in New York.
Fair enough. So obviously ECW returns only to be killed off by WWE. I had I had Louis Dangerously on the show, who was working in the office at the time that ECW returned. So he was doing a lot of the behind the scenes stuff for ECW, communicating with promoters and getting the venues booked and all that stuff. He was doing all of that stuff. And he told me a really almost a sad story where he had found out from the office that they were planning to
end it,
knock this thing on the head, because they weren't, Vince wasn't happy with how it looked in the arena. They did a house show in the arena and he wasn't happy with how it looked. So it went from being Tommy and Paul could do whatever they want. Tommy was going to reignite his feud with C.W. Anderson and just pretend that no time had gone by and they were just going to kick everything back off as if ECW never went away. And then Lou sat there with him and said, Tommy, I'm really sorry to tell you this, but they're going to kill it. And
so I didn't know that part. I just remember them having the show, then it was it. That was it. Yeah. Tell something I didn't know.
So like for me, it's a very disappointing thing as a fan for me that I had all these high hopes, and within a few months it was just like a watered down version of Raw.
It became a joke. It really did. Yeah,
absolutely. So from there, Bob, I wanted to ask you, what do you hope that you are most remembered for in your time in wrestling?
I guess by the fans for doing a good job. I guess from the wrestlers for me putting them over and just being their friends. I mean, just being just having that rapport that I have with them, which I still do with the ones I see. It's a great rapport. You know what? It's a great business, and it's a very close knit. Well, obviously, it has to be close knit because of the what it is, and the ones you really stay close with. For example, now I used to. We have a spare bedroom, our house. It's just my wife and I. And when certain wrestlers who you really became friends with would come in for a show, we would have them stay at our house rather than go to the hotel. And then I would take them to the hotel the next day. So we had Ivan Koloff, Jimmy Snuka, Don Morocco, Al Perez, Jim Neidhart, Bob Orton Jr. I can't think of all of them, but these are ones we really became good friends with. And we just had so much fun just talking, going out to eat. Then I would take them to the airport the next Sunday morning. They'd fly out. And a lot of times when they came back, we would do it again. So these are memories I'll never forget. And I'm not one, this is funny. I'm not one, I don't have pictures. I don't have this, like I'm not one to say, hey, Ivan, let me get a picture with you. It's it's just the memories. We had just great memories, of talking with them, visiting with them. And I felt that I had a great rapport with them. I just talked to Don Morocco Tuesday. I called him Tuesday night. So like I said, certain ones I still stay in touch with. Al Perez, the Latin heartthrob, we went golfing with. Eddie Gilbert, when Eddie Gilbert was here, we played ball with him. Eddie loved baseball. So that was a rapport, the kind of the rapport I had with them. It was a friendship, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And that's what I enjoyed the most. We had a good time with a lot of them.
That's fantastic, Bob. Really, really appreciate you sharing that with me. It comes to this segment here now, Bob. It's called 5-Second Frenzy. You have 5 seconds to answer each question. Even if you break the 5 seconds, it's okay. Because I've had many guys who have taken a lot of bumps over the years on the
Right.
show, and you've taken several 3Ds. So if you can't answer them in 5 seconds, you won't get in trouble. It's okay. Okay, so Bob Artese, the first question: who is your favorite wrestler?
Don Morocco.
Excellent. What would you say is your favorite match that you've witnessed in person?
Anything involving George Steele.
Awesome. Bob, what's your favorite book?
Anything on hockey.
Excellent. Favorite TV show?
Jeez, I don't watch TV a lot. Sports. Hockey.
Cool. Ice hockey, the bit of the NHL.
Yeah, big NHL fan, yeah.
Excellent. I find it funny. Over in Australia, we call it ice hockey, but over there it's just called hockey, right?
Ice hockey.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I had a Canadian friend make fun of me because I kept calling it ice hockey, so I don't know.
Well, there is field hockey, so you're
Yeah.
right. It is ice hockey. It is ice hockey, yeah.
Okay, good. All right, so I was right.
You're right, yeah.
Favorite film, Bob?
Slapshot.
Brilliant, fantastic film. And when I was a kid, I really loved the Mighty Ducks.
That was another good one, yeah.
Yeah. Favorite musical artist?
Oh. Righteous Brothers.
Nice. Favorite food?
Spaghetti.
Nice. Favorite place to eat on the road?
Any Italian restaurant.
Very nice. Third last one, your favorite alcoholic beverage?
Wine.
Nice. I've been partaking a little bit
Okay, yes.
tonight.
Like red wine.
That's it.
Yeah, I like red wine.
Oh, brilliant. I mean, if you like Italian food, you have to like red wine.
Yeah.
Second last one, Bob. The naughtiest one. Your favorite female body part?
Female body part. Her mind.
Yeah, we've had that a few times. The mind is always a very popular one on the show. And the last one, Bob, I don't think you've sworn on this show. I don't think you swear. Maybe you do, but what would be your favorite curse word?
I don't curse much. Maybe shit. Damn. I don't know. That's about it. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe when you stub your toe on the leg of a table, you might say
I
shit.
don't. Yeah, because of my job and I'm around kids a lot, and I don't curse a lot. Yeah.
Fair enough, mate. Well, Bob, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me for an hour here tonight. And I really
enjoyed it as much as you did. I enjoyed it as much as you did.
This was fantastic. We had a great laugh together, and it was great to hear you reminisce on some of your fondest memories of your time in a very important period of your life with Extreme Championship Wrestling, and just to learn a little bit about you and your journey is something that's really enthralling for me. And I just wanted to say, I live in the most isolated city in the world, Perth, Western Australia, and I was always extremely impressed with the way that you did your thing. And I think being in the most isolated city in the world, it shows how far that someone can reach. So I just wanted you to know that someone this far away appreciates you, my friend.
Well, it's if you like it. You know what I mean? If you like it, you can have fun with it. And that's just like you do a great job, and your knowledge of wrestling is tremendous. But I can tell just from talking to you how much you enjoy doing what you're doing.
Absolutely. This is the best thing I've ever done this show. So I want to thank you, Bob. And once I end the show, I'll just want to talk to you for another minute, and then I'll let you go
Sure.
and get on with your day.
My pleasure. Okay.
Thank you, Bob Artese. And thank you, everyone out there, for watching the Insider's Edge podcast here on the WZWA Network in conjunction with Blue Wire Hustle. I'm your host with the most on the West Coast, California in Fury, and we will see you next time. Thank you.